Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Sammy Thunder. Welcome to Four Collectors, the Four Collectors channel. I am with these two gentlemen. Need no introduction, but I'm going to give them an introduction anyway because these guys are well respected in the hobby. Mr. John Mangini, the Mangini Collection, and Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank
Uh,
you, Sammy.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you're reading the description and the title. Tonight, we're going to be discussing rare sports cards, vintage sports cards, and these two guys are like renowned for understanding how to go about buying rare sports cards. I guess all different sports, I'd imagine. I mean, you guys have been doing this for a long time, and really, this video was kind of I wanted to pick your brains, but I imagine there's a lot of other people who would love to know how to go about finding these rare items that are at shows or online. So I want to first go into discussing the purchasing stuff online. Um, you guys both purchase rare stuff online, or is it mostly at shows, or both?
Both.
John, you too?
I'd say both, but mostly online because I don't have many shows around me, so I don't go to many shows.
Okay.
So mostly online.
Let's pick the online part first then.
Yeah, definitely online. I would say probably 80% of my purchases are online.
Okay.
I do go to more shows than John because I go at least once a month to the local show, and then I
Yeah.
go Saturday. I'm going back up to Orlando to a show up there. But
Yeah, Orlando has access to a lot of shows around his area.
right,
I don't
yeah,
have.
right.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about the online portion of things first, because I mean there's probably a different mindset that goes into that. So when it comes to buying stuff online that has very few comps dating back, let's say years ago, like let's say the last purchase was like from 2019 prior to COVID, and now you're buying this in 2023. What is the mindset? What do you look for when there's very little comps and you're at the mercy of the seller, or when it seems that way?
Okay, I'll go. I guess I'll go first. Well, I mean, you're talking about an item probably that is pretty rare, something that hasn't shown up or been at auction, because there's a lot of auction houses that have items that won't appear on eBay. So sometimes you go to the auction houses and you look at their history and you may be able to find some comps there, or of course VCP will probably have some comps. But if there hasn't been a sale, let's say 3-4 years, right? Uh, and the it's at a show and he wants a certain price. First you have to realize, and I know John and I know what's rare and what's not rare. There's stuff out there that you never see. When it comes to something like that, Sammy, you almost got to go with the price that the guy has and try to negotiate down as best you can there. You really comps really don't make are not they're going to be that accurate for something that's sold 3 or 4 years ago. With everything that's happened. So I think what you got to do is you got to look at the last comp, see what he's selling his for, and kind of come into a compromise. What I see a lot of times that happens when I buy some rare stuff that hasn't sold in a while is I end up being the comp. You know what I mean? You bought it. Now, if you're looking to sell it, you bought the last one. So you kind of become almost a comp. And at that point, as a dealer, you're almost could establish your own price. It gets to that point when you're talking about rare stuff. For me, rare stuff, when I see something rare like that I know is rare, I'll buy it. Those are things you just buy and you pay whatever you got to pay for it, because you may not see another one for another 3 or 5 more years.
It's a good point. And actually, I mean, I remember I consulted with you, Orlando, as well as some of the other guys from the National, regarding that S81 Silk Mathewson.
Right.
And I was able to go, and I did see a comp that was purchased, and it was actually the dealer purchased it, same exact one, and then he sold it for listen, he's got to make a profit. I totally understand that. So he sold it. He bought it for like 13 and change, and he sold it for about 17 and change. So he made a $400 profit. And so now I have that item, and so yeah, it's sometimes, as you mentioned, it definitely makes sense that to become the comp essentially, and then you kind of have your own way of handling it if you did want to sell it. But that's a good way to look at it. Is there any difference, John, as far as how you go about it?
Well, I agree with Orlando, and my secret weapon is I stay away from the big auction houses because the most important thing when it comes to finding and buying rare cards is education. Like Orlando and I, it's taken us decades to learn about all these cards. Newer people to the hobby don't know them. And so I often find them for less uh, than other cards because people don't know what they're looking at. They don't bid on them. And they'll sit on eBay for a year or two, or they'll put up a fair asking price, first, bidding price, and nobody else bids on it. That kind of thing. When you go to the big auction houses like Heritage and REA, those are true vintage collectors that know what they're looking at, and they'll bid it up. And there are so many things that fall under the radar on eBay, I can't even tell you.
Why is it that like the true vintage collectors that buy off Heritage and REA, why do they let it slip by on eBay? You would think that they'd be on that as well.
I don't know, but I could tell you that the prices on those auctions by the big time collectors, and I know a lot of big money vintage collectors who will show out the money that don't even go on eBay. They only go to the big auction houses. And not only that, but the big auction houses, you can look through all the cards there. You can't possibly look through all the cards on eBay. So what I do is I have searches that will alert me, and I'll go a year with nothing popping up because nobody's posting that card. And then I have my regular searches that I just look through on a regular basis. I keep a list of the rare items that I'm going for because one of my collecting goals, my big one, is to try to get one vintage card from every vintage card set. And so the rare sets that I don't have, I keep a search list, and I just go through there and search and see what's on there. Now, when it comes to the price you pay, like Orlando said, pretty much when they're rare cards and they don't come up, you might not see another one for 5 years or your whole life. So it really boils down to what are you comfortable paying for it? That's really the bottom line, because you may never come across one again.
Yeah.
It's not like you have all these comps with, 30,000 graded Dan Marino rookie cards or 30,000 graded Michael Jordan rookie. You don't have that luxury. A lot of these cards that we buy, there's less than 10 of them, that have ever been graded. And
Right.
certainly have lots that there's, 30 or less that have ever been graded. When you're in that realm, that's a whole different realm. So if you're comfortable paying the price and you want it, you just kind of have to pay that price.
Which kind of leads me to I didn't ask for advice from anybody at the Philly show, and I don't regret not. I mean, believe me, it's always helpful to get the advice, but
Yeah.
it was I was in the heat. It was in the heat of the moment. Yeah, finding that one dealer that had something from the list that I really wanted, which was the 1958 Hires Root Beer Test of Willie Mays Raw, and so pretty much had to do research right then and there.
Right.
I probably could have sent them text message asking everybody, and but it was just like right at the heat of the moment, had to come up, had to stand on my own 2 feet and make it work. And trying to find comps on it, the guy ended up wanting it for $14.50, and it wasn't. I mean, it was in slightly rough shape, but to speak on your point, and this is why I don't have buyer's regret, is the fact that I went the entire room of the Philly show. Not one dealer had it, and these are big time dealers.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me everything I needed to know. I felt like, okay, I have the funds to do it. This guy wants $14.50 for it, and if it grades a 2, it's going to be worth 1,700 maybe, but the monetary value is not nearly as important because I'm not trying to flip it or I'm not trying to sell it.
Right.
It's the thrill of the hunt of finding something so unique. And so to further your point, that the idea of not probably not seeing something like that for quite some time makes it all the worthwhile, because I would have regret not taking the chance on it if I didn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Sammy,
Sammy,
I want to say this real quick. I have never regretted when I was in that situation and bought the card. But I can't tell you how many regrets I have when I was in that situation and didn't buy the cards and either never saw it again or the price is, 20 times what it was for me to buy it at that moment.
Yeah.
that's an awesome point, because I can tell you a lot of cards that I didn't buy that I regret, but none that I bought
Yep.
that I regret.
Me too. I
and
can honestly say that.
and when you're talking, Sammy, about a card like that you know how rare it is, if you don't buy that card, the next person is going to come see that and they're going to buy that card. So you have to really look at not just the price, but the rarity. Are you ever going to run into that card again? And it gets to a point, Sammy, when you get to something that rare, like I said before, the dealer could almost ask any price they want at that point. But it's going to depend. Again, do they really want to sell it, or is it part of their museum?
Right.
So you got to determine that first. But what I've seen is that most dealers, they're going to put it out, they want to sell it. And going to the talking a little bit about auction versus eBay. Yeah, eBay. I have, like John, I have a lot of searches on eBay. But the problem with my searches is just like John. You can go a year and you'll never find the card. But they do come up at auction. So sometimes you don't have any options, or your options are very limited. There's a card that I have today, right? And it's the only one on eBay, and the guy is asking $80,000 for a PSA 5. I have that PSA 5. He wants $80,000. The card's not worth $80,000. He puts it at 10 times the amount. Buy it now, and that's what happens on eBay a lot of times. They're also on eBay for show, but when you go to what you see at the auction
they're
houses,
not serious about selling it.
They're not serious about
They're just trying
selling.
to find somebody to take advantage of, basically.
Exactly. So what I see at auction houses is that a lot of the real true collectors are going to go there more than the flippers. A lot of those buy it now are flippers. So auction houses have, I belong to the Net 54 board there, and they're talking all the time about all the things coming up for auction. They know everything that's coming up, and they're already saying, I'm going to be bidding or whatever. And as soon as the auction is over, they post everything. And these are real collectors who are never going to sell their collection, or at least not. They're like John and I. So they will pay more at the auction houses because it's the only place they're going to find it. And that's why the auction houses have become a little bit higher priced. But it's like we said before, if you want it, sometimes you have to kind of pay up for it.
Well, those auction houses have they're the bigger money collectors.
Yes.
So you're not going to get the deals that you get elsewhere.
No.
And when it comes to the prices, I mean, I'll see something and I'll be like, man, I really want that, but the price is just so absurd, or I just know it's overvalued, even if it's rare. Because let's face it, just because something is rare doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily worth a fortune,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
Right.
The 52 mantle isn't rare.
No.
The Michael Jordan rookie card isn't remotely rare. You can still find them unopened packs, but they go for a lot of money. So demand has something to play with that. There's something to say about that. And that's why a lot of the cards that Orlando and I get really excited about, like Orlando, the one I picked up at the National, right? Our Cuban.
Yes, the Martin Dihigo.
Yes, sir. So, most people don't even know who he is, even though he may be the greatest baseball player to ever live. So, I got that for a steal.
Yeah,
I got it for I couldn't pull my money out fast enough when he told me the price, because I thought it was so undervalued.
John, if you wouldn't have got that card, I would have bought it. I saw it the day before, and I didn't go after it. I did end up getting.
He had a Tiant Senior for $300, and I didn't have my classes, and I didn't see the card, and Rick snaked it from me. He saw it, and he hurried up and bought it, because
I ended up getting this from that dealer.
I'd pay that all day long.
I ended up getting the rookie card, but you got the second year, which is the tougher card.
Well, I have them both now.
Yes,
because I already had that one.
Let me ask you.
Super excited, and that second year, that second series is way lower pop. I have the
Way
Ray
lower.
Dandridge from that set too, and SGC mislabeled it as the year earlier.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's how I got that for a good bargain, because they mislabeled it.
Second year Minoso.
Wow. Let me ask you guys a question.
And definitely, those are cards that the pop is what, less than 20 or 30 or even less than that in some cases.
Usually less than that, yeah.
That's why John
That
and I
second
say,
set,
yeah,
the older
if you
set.
see something like that, I mean, you got to go for it. If that's a card you want, go for it. And whatever the price is, sometimes you just, you just got to pay up. And I'll pay up for a card that is rare, that I know that I haven't seen in many, many years. There's cards that I searched for 15, 20 years, and I never saw it coming up. And finally, when I saw it, I went all out. I didn't even look at the comp because I knew I was never going to see another one or get another one.
Let me ask
Yeah,
you.
I don't look at comps either. I rarely know the price of a card, but what I do is I try to research as best as I can. But you just get a feel for what these things go for, what they should be worth, and because you don't see them all the time. Comps are out the window, man, unless there's 5 recent sales or something.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, because you guys were talking about those cards you purchased at the National and how excited you guys got. I mean, I can just tell immediately because both of you guys are going back and forth. Really, really, yeah. The excitement is there, and I love that. But going up to those tables, were these like? Do you think the dealers just didn't really have much knowledge on it, or they just didn't really
No.
care as much?
This dealer specialized in Cuban cards.
Right.
He's the biggest Cuban card dealer.
He was
So-
the
But
most
that's what
knowledgeable Cuban. Yes, the most
Yeah, but
knowledgeable
that's what
dealer.
he valued it at.
So was he
And-
valuing these cards at the price that they were going for market, or was he like? Did he understand that these cards were?
Sammy, I'll be honest with you. I didn't ask him. It was
Okay.
a fantastic price. It was less than I paid for the less rare one. And
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. It was the first time I ever saw the card, and I haven't seen one since.
That's right. And I haven't seen one since you bought yours. And I've
Yeah.
been looking for one. But yes, that dealer knew the prices, but he was very fair. He
Yep.
moves a lot of cards. He wanted to move a lot of inventory there. And, he knew what he had and he knew the prices, but he wasn't overpricing the stuff because
Yeah, he
had
definitely knew what he
mine.
had.
He had, I mean, he gave me like $300 off of mine. It was a a little over $2,000 card. He gave me $300 or $400 off. And that was because I knew Victor, who had bought a lot of stuff from him also. And he didn't have to give me that discount. I was gonna buy it no matter what, because when you get a card like that, what are you gonna do?
Right.
And
Again,
I
Sammy,
want to
you
say
gotta go for
this.
it.
I want to say this. I do not seek out people that don't know what they have and try to take one over on them.
No.
If I found somebody and that it was so undervalued, I would pay them more. I would be like, "This is what you have. I'm going to make you this offer." I do not seek to take advantage of people that don't know what they have. This guy just gave good deals.
That's
Yeah.
good.
He had maybe 10-20% margin at the most on those cards.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he made his profit, or he wouldn't have priced him there. Right.
Right.
Is it kind of like this is a weird comparison, but just run with me on this one. You know how there's like the like those big retail shops, and then you have the boutiques. Would you say it's that kind of sort of comparison? Like there's specialty dealers, and then you have the big time dealers that are focusing on the traditional stuff that people love. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say so. Most,
Yeah.
well, I say it all the time, we see the same 100, 200 big cards over and over and over again. And that's all like the newer people in the hobby. Those are the only cards they know.
Yeah.
They don't even know these other cards exist. So when you play in the realm of rare cards, even though they're harder to find, you oftentimes end up having far less competition.
Mhm.
Because they either don't know the player, they don't know the cards, they don't know what they're looking at. And I know, before I was on YouTube and before I had advantage of all this that I am, witness to now, all this education that Orlando and everybody else shares. I didn't know how rare some of these things were. I had cards that were rare, didn't know it, had no idea because there was no pop reports or anything. All you can really go by is I never see these. I never saw this before.
Right.
and that's what's always gotten me excited, and I would seek those things out.
I mean, that was that for the national this year was my eye opener, because I was one of the, I mean, I still am, but I still seek out like a lot of the traditional stuff that you find at a lot of the tables. But yeah, after the national, it opened my eyes. I started looking. I've been using Trading Card Database for a single player. They show all the different possible cards you can find of that player, which I find to be incredibly helpful.
It's a great website.
Yeah, I mean, everyone collects differently. I like the aesthetic of a design of a card. If there's a card that's $100 and then that has great color, great look to it, and then there's a card that goes for $1,000 but it's bland looking, I'm gonna get the $100 card because I love the way it looks. That being said, the uniqueness of it is what adds to the flair of it all. And so seeing what y'all were picking up at the national, I mean, I made pickups. I wanted to pick up a Clemente 55. I wanted to pick up, Mays 52 tops. And, like, as you mentioned, you can find them almost at every table. And so, but, it's a nice thing to have. But
Well, those kinds of cards you can buy anytime you want to spend the money on them. Yeah. And there's no shortage of them. Same with 52 Mantle. There's probably 13 of them on eBay right now.
Yeah.
You could buy those anytime you want to spend the money on them. The cards we're talking about, that's not the case.
Right.
You don't know when you're going to see one next.
Yeah.
And that's what definitely.
And the more collectors there are, the more they're keeping them in their collections too.
Yeah.
And the flippers aren't flipping these cards because they don't even know what they are. Jeff Wilson, I watched a video. He didn't even know what the Dan D or Red Heart Mickey Mantles were. I mean, that's like card 101. Like that's like third grade stuff. So they don't even know what these rare cards are.
One of the things, John, and I think it's just going to be a matter of time. You see somebody like Sammy now is getting into these rare cards and cards that are whatever, maybe odd. I guess we'll call them oddball type cards. But really, I think that the future of a true vintage collector, the more they learn about the hobby, the more they learn about cards, they're going to eventually go back, like Sammy's doing, to these type of cards. Because these are the cards that not everybody's showing on YouTube, not everybody has in their collection. And you know what? I want to have a unique collection. I want to have stuff that other people don't have, but that I love to have, stuff that I like. And those are the things I think once people learn more about some of the rarer cards and things that they don't know about today, those cards eventually are going to go up in value. It's just a matter of time.
And, well, they may or may not. I just watched a video today where a guy said that only rookie cards are worth buying, and you shouldn't buy second-year cards. Nobody wants them. Nobody knows what they look like. Nobody wants anything but a rookie card.
Yeah. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I showed these in the video.
There's some truth to that. The rookie card thing is it's always blown my mind, the difference in price, because I certainly want Hank Aaron's second year. I certainly want Johnny Bench's second year more than his first. Nolan Ryan's second year more than his first. Pete Rose's second year more than his first.
Look, who doesn't want rookie cards? And I have rookie cards. I collect rookie cards. I think we all do.
Yeah, but, of course.
Those are 50s and 60s. They're common cards. I mean, that's really the bottom line on those. You can get those anytime you want, any day. And that's why when I started going back to pre-war, I couldn't afford to buy a lot of pre-war stuff. So I had to sell some of mine. And my decision was, I can get these cards again anytime. I can go back on eBay today and buy them if I had the money. But I can't go buy a 1923 Caramel Babe Ruth. You're just not going to find those. So lucky I got at the right time, because I can't get it today. But, I think a lot of the rare cards are going to be the same way, in the future. I really do think that once people recognize and they start studying not just the history of baseball, but the history of cards and card collecting. And
I have mixed thoughts on that, because I don't know if they will. They like you and I are baseball fans. We know the old players, and a lot of people don't. Like I have two of only 4 ever graded Cy Williams cards. Well, most people don't even know who Cy Williams was. They don't know that, You know, he led the league in home runs 4 times. He was considered the National League Babe Ruth, and he's one of only 3 players born before 1900 to amass 200 home runs. And at one time led the National League in home runs. Rogers Hornsby and Babe Ruth being the other 2, by the way. But they don't even know that. But I own 2 of the 4 that exist that are graded, and the highest graded copy. But who cares if nobody wants it? Like,
yeah, no,
I might be the
you're
only
right.
one that wants it.
I'm the same way. I mean, I collected it because I love it, not because I'm looking to sell. Because I don't sell any of my big cards, any of the stuff that's rare that I've been collecting for a long time. Hell, it took me long enough to find it. I'm going to sell it? No way. I'm holding on to that stuff, you know, until I die or until I need the money, you know. But I think the bottom line with that is that there are a lot of people that are going back. And even if you look at on YouTube, John, I'm not talking about the breakers and stuff. I'm talking about a lot of the guys, even some of the young guys like Dom, Staven Sports, and even Sammy, because Sammy, I know you're kind of young compared to me, but, you know, there's a lot of younger guys that are getting into, you know, Jack, Cracker Jack, they're getting into a lot of that vintage stuff.
I know,
Orlando, and I do think that there is.
You can count them on one hand.
Well, you know, but also, John,
I don't think that's the norm.
I'm not saying it's the norm. It's definitely not the norm. But I will say one thing, that we have great collections, John, you and I. But I know a lot of people, and you know a lot of people. I would say that 80 or 90% of the top collections you'll never see on YouTube. You know, I know you guys personally that have incredible collections, John, like you and I collections. All right. 52 Topps mantles. They're never going to show that on that. So there's a lot of people that we don't see and we don't know, but they're out there and they reach out to us. A lot of them through their to the comments and stuff. People like Mike Petty. Mike Petty, you know, I don't know if you know, he's got an incredible collection. He chats on all the chats. So I do think there's there's kind of a, you know, we look at YouTube because we're on YouTube a lot, but there's a lot of guys out there. That's why that things on REA and Love of the Game auction and Heritage. That's why all those items are selling for so high, because there is a silent, like they say, the silent majority out there.
Yep.
And it's not us YouTube guys. It's the true collector that's on Net 54 that has these collections, and they're never going to let go of some of these cards. And so let me tie into that a little bit, because one of the things Sammy was saying earlier to me was that, you know, where do you get your cards? How do you find your cards? You know, and yes, eBay is the #1 source, like we talked about. You know, that's probably where everybody goes. But you're not going to find certain things on eBay. So you do have to go to the auction houses sometimes. And I do that. I do go to the auction houses. But I think the point I'm getting to is because of our friendships here, YouTube guys have incredible collections. I've been able to pick up a lot of stuff through YouTube that I would have never picked up through eBay, because there's things that were in somebody's collection, like that Mini Minoso card I showed you. That was Victor, a Cuban card collector. He's not on YouTube, but I got to know him through YouTube and was able to pick up a card that I would have never, ever found. So, you know, you have to really look everywhere. eBay, auction houses, friends, YouTube guys, as many places as you can, and just let everybody know what you collect and what you're looking for. And sometimes it comes back to you.
That's, yeah, I mean,
to piggyback on that for a second, nearly every video I do, somebody will be, you know, I get comments, I've never seen that before. I just bought that on eBay. I had to go get one once you showed it. And that's the beautiful part about YouTube, because it happens to me too. I'll be like, oh, I never saw that, and then I want to get one. Yeah. It's like you can't know it exists until you know it exists. And you can't know that until somebody shows you, until you see it somewhere and know what it is. And part of the beauty of YouTube is not only do they show you that card, but they might, you know, tell you a little bit about it, about the pop, you know, the pops on it, maybe what you have to pay for it. You know, they give you a little education on it, or the play.
Exactly.
So we are more educated now in this hobby than we have ever been, by a long shot.
Well, John, we are the educators here. We're the ones that are showing the younger guys, you know, some of these rare cards. You know, you were the one that started this thing, and, you know, you were one of the first channels that I watched, and it was just one of the reasons I started YouTube was because I had to share some of my stuff just like you did, but the purpose of mine was just to kind of document the stuff that I had and share what it is, and who the players are and those type of things. And so I think my job, not job, but I think one of the things I try to do in my channel, just like John does, is try to share stuff that other people don't know about, haven't seen, players that you really have maybe heard the name, but you don't know exactly what this guy did, like John just mentioned before. So I think with our educating, people like that, John, I think that hopefully, and that's my hope, that the young people will get into vintage and then eventually go further down into the rarer pre-war stuff like we like.
Yeah, and to that point, you could only look at, I don't know, 1966 Mickey Mantle so often.
Right.
When you start to see the same cards over and over, it's like that great song you love, but they play it on the radio so damn much that you get sick of it and you never want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Even though you love it.
I had a
It's
guy
just overkill.
I had a guy
And-
comment on one of my videos, on like my card show videos, and I always get a good laugh out of it. He wrote, "Yawn, more 50s and 60s." Every table.
Is his name Chris?
I forget. He didn't state his name, but he's done it multiple times, and he inspired me actually, because now at the last show I tried to showcase stuff from booths that had like those like really rare stuff, like not really cards, more like programs and stuff from the 40s and 50s and 30s. And so I was thinking of this guy, and I wanted to make my card show videos a lot more diverse than just a 65 maze, a 58 mantle.
Yeah, no, there's a place for that, because there are a lot of new collectors, there are a lot of younger collectors that have never seen that stuff. There's a place for that,
Of course,
It's just when you get to a certain level of your collecting or been around and you've seen all these cards over and over your entire life.
Tired.
Yeah.
I think for like Orlando and me, it would be a different experience than for somebody who's 21 years old or 16 years old. For sure.
Yeah, but we all started like that, Sammy. I mean, you started with 50s and 60s, and then it gets to a point that you own virtually almost all the 50s and 60s cars, and you go, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why I'm impressed with your collection, Sammy, because you've really gone back to pre-war, but not just basic pre-war. You've really studied some of those older sets and older issues. And that's what I'm hoping everybody does, and that's why these videos and these live streams, to me, that's what I'm trying to do, is get people to just go back and take a look at some of these older stuff that you may have never seen. And if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, fine. But at least check it out.
I want to show you guys the thing I got in the mail. I already published this on my channel, but it was the transagram.
Yep.
So I saw this one on a Facebook group, and I actually looked on eBay to see if there was one that sold, and it was this one that sold. So the guy selling on Facebook, I said, because I paid extra just because I couldn't find another one. And so I jokingly said to him, like, awesome job making a nice profit for yourself on this.
Now, do you know where those come from?
Yeah, so I confused it in the video, because I know the 69 and 70s. This one was a 1970, and I thought the 1970 were the solo ones, but I guess the 1970 came in a group. They were the figurines that came in the packaging. On the back of the packaging were the cards.
Yeah.
And so I thought this one was the solo one, but it doesn't matter. I mean, this one came in a package of 3.
An interesting note with those transagrams is on the box, they had another little tiny picture of the player that, was the figure. And throughout the years, they would cut those out and try to pawn them off as the card. That's the card.
Right.
I mean, they have a place because they were on the box, but it's to the point now where I'm even seeing those graded, which I find
that's crazy.
Hilarious. I find that ridiculous that they would grade those little cutouts because that's not the card.
No, that's not the
card. What you're holding there is clearly the card. It has cutout area for you to collect that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like the raw.
you know what it's like, Orlando. It's like if you get a Kellogg's card, you get the original box, which I have a few, and you cut out the card on the back of the
I saw
Kellogg's
you
bar
debate this.
that's promoting them.
Right.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's not
Exactly.
that's not intended to be a baseball card.
Yeah.
So
It-
I
it's-
find
it-
I find it ridiculous that they grade those.
Yeah, it's not like the Rawlings Stan Musial that is actually
Right.
a card. This is a little tiny little thing.
Yeah.
But and then I showed this one the other day, but this one is the 85 Prism.
Oh man, yeah, the jewel.
And it came with the guy had the original cardboard that it came out of the vending box.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's cool.
And the only person that I could find that had any information about that set was from Adam, Splendid Sports Cards.
Yeah, we
Right.
did.
Yeah.
He wrote the Mangini letter. He wrote an article on those.
That must have
And-
been it then.
Yeah, and that was the first time. I don't know if you're subscribed. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we put a lot of information in there
Yes.
on different rare card sets, obscure card sets, and also players. And anyway, he did one on that. And to be honest with you, when he asked me about doing it, was the first time I knew they existed. I didn't know they were existed. And 85 was kind of in the wheelhouse of my collecting. Well,
Yeah,
maybe just after the wheelhouse.
Yeah, that was an oddly distributed because it came from those vending machines where you put a quarter in and you pull it
Yeah.
out like that. So I don't know how. I mean, a regular distributed piece like that. But I know the Jordan is extremely expensive,
Yeah.
and they're really tough to find because a lot of those things they're almost like metal, and so they kind of like when you bend them a little. If you bend them, they mess up.
That Adam, he has sneaky knowledge. You don't know he
Yeah.
has all the knowledge he has until he
Yeah.
starts spewing it, and you don't know the extent of his collection either because he never shows the good stuff.
Right, he
What
was hiding it back there. But I had
Yeah,
never seen the
He
little
hides it.
thing where it came in, Sammy. I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, when I told him that I picked, because when I told him I picked one up, I was getting his advice on it because I saw that he had one. He has a Larry Bird graded with PSA, and so when I told him that it also came with the cardboard holder, he got really excited about it, and he was like, "Oh, we gotta have you on the Turn Back the Clock, the next one out, so we could talk about this." And then I jokingly said to him, "But nobody cares about basketball." But it is what it is. No, I think we're working that out. But yeah, I mean, again, like we're talking about unique items. Like I went around this was on my list, and I went around the Philly show, and half the dealers had no idea what it was, and
Yep.
so it was,
That's very obscure set. Very obscure.
yeah, it's very flashy. It's unlike it's not like the stuff I would normally get, but I'm a big Larry Bird collector, and I just thought it was just a cool looking novelty item.
Yeah,
So I figured,
and
why
it's a
not?
sticker. It's a sticker actually.
Yeah,
Larry Bird was insanely good
Oh
Yes.
wow, yeah. I mean,
all around.
he holds him, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain are the three players that have won 3 MVPs in a row. Only 3 players that have done it.
Well, he could pass with the best of them. He had those behind the back passes and everything. He was a heck of a competitor. When the game was on the line, you wanted him shooting the ball. Incredible
all.
outside shooter. I watched him
Yeah.
all throughout college.
yeah.
My dad's like, you got to watch this guy. And so I watched all his college games. He's just insane.
Yeah, and he was a big guy. People think he was kind of small because he was a
He
guard.
didn't
was
look like a
big guy.
basketball player. That was the
No.
amazing part. You would never look at him and go, wow, he's one of the best.
Yeah, and he actually played defense, and you think he didn't play
Oh.
defense, but he was an all-around player.
He
for
could
sure,
do it all. He could do
He
it
could
all.
do it
He
all.
was a
Yeah,
great player.
yeah.
I don't think he gets the love that he deserves.
No, I actually think that he's undervalued still.
He wasn't when he was playing. We all recognized how good he was when he was playing.
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys, they fall, a little bit of their brand falls off a little bit over time. It's not, I don't know. People just, people that never saw him don't know about him.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a unrelated, I guess, question. What's the show that's coming up in Ohio? I think it's happening in Cleveland or outside
Strongsville.
Strongsville.
Strongsville show.
Are you both going to that?
I'm going to the Strongsville show. Yeah, I've got a room with Rick Rocket Rick J. I'm in a room with him, but definitely that's in April.
I've heard about that show. What
It's
about
in
you?
April. That's in Ohio.
Yes, Strongsville, Ohio. I guess it's near Cincinnati or something. I think I'm not sure. But Chris from Missouri was kind of organizing and trying to get a bunch of guys to go, and
Well, I
I
can't
made a
say I
commitment.
definitely
I'm going to
am not going, but
You never
I,
know.
I wasn't planning
Yeah.
on it till you just brought it up.
go. Yeah.
So I guess
I've heard of that show,
yeah.
by the way. That's a big
Yeah,
one.
I've never been to that show. This will be my first time to the show, and they said that it's all vintage or 99% vintage. So I can't
Well,
wait, and it's right at
Cincinnati's
the
a good.
hotel. So
Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and it's a sports town, man. There's always shows, there's card shops. Everybody knows about the athletes, even everybody. And Cincinnati is the same way. That's a sports town. So those are the best shows.
It's good to know. I might have to reconsider.
See, I'm in South Carolina. It's all college sports down here. So you don't have big shows. You don't have a lot of card shops. We have them here and there, but not like when you're in a sports city.
Gotcha.
There's no sports team that people have rooted for generations.
It's definitely true. I was looking at a website that shows how all the shows are skewed to the northeast and a
yes,
little bit to the northwest or the southwest. But yeah, I mean, Chris from Missouri talks about like a few handful of shows that happen in his area that are vintage. So he's really well versed in that. I guess before we adjourn, again, like thank you guys again for letting me pick your brains and really taking away a lot of great information. I'm sure a lot of people who will watch this will also do the same. But is there anything you want to just mention before we head out?
no, just collect what you like, and if for me, it just got to a point that, like you said before, I got kind of tired of looking at all of the 57 cards and 58 and 59 cards, and it just got to a point where I wanted to find something different. And for me, different was going back into some of that oddball stuff, some of the rarer stuff like that, like what John has. And those are the kind of things that I enjoy looking at and I enjoy collecting, because it's just, for me, it makes my collection unique, and that's what I try to do. I don't want my collection to look like everybody else's collection. So that's kind of my thing. Collect what I like, but stuff that I think that is kind of rare, and that's what I just enjoy that.
Absolutely. I definitely have evolved to kind of frame that mindset around both of you guys to see it definitely has rubbed off in a good way. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as my last words here,
yeah,
is that I mean,
You never have last words, John. Never.
nobody should have to tell you to collect what you like, but I'd like to put that into a little bit of a different perspective. I always liked overseas issues, and I liked what people call oddball issues and obscure cards. And at one time, like, they didn't carry a whole lot of value. You couldn't give them away. Like, one of the examples is the Sanella Babe Ruth. I mean, I bought two of those and the complete set for $300 shortly before the boom, and two PSA sixes. And after the boom, threes were selling for $3,000, 3,500.
Right.
I bought a Briggs Meat, Willie Mays for next to nothing, a very rare Willie Mays, and a few months ago on I think it was REA, it sold for 13,000. So if you just buy what you like, fads come and go.
Yeah.
Certain things you're paying up for now, people won't want in the future, and vice versa. And if you just stay true to who you are and collect what you want, you don't have to worry about that, because number one, you're going to enjoy it in your collection.
Exactly.
And down the road, if you ever want to sell or something, you could benefit in a big way. But you can't predict these things. At one time, an autographed card was considered defacing it, and it was worth less. So if you had an autographed Hank Aaron rookie card, the dealer wouldn't give you anything for it. But now look, if you have one, how times have changed.
Yep.
And there's this ebb and flow where, fads come and go. The fads change. And so You just never know. So that's why collecting what you want and what you
Mhm.
enjoy, you'll never go wrong because you enjoy it in your collection.
That's a great point, John, because you never know what's going to
Mhm.
be desirable in the future. We just never know.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys again so much for taking the time, and really good advice to finish off on. As you mentioned, things kind of change a lot, and as you mentioned, you can't go. There's no right or wrong way. It's what you enjoy and what you really love. But again, thank you guys so much for joining. This is again for collectors. My name is Sammy Thunder. Subscribe if you have not seen any of the videos before. It's Theo, Pino Man Caesar, and John 3D 80s Kid, and myself. So have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having me,
guys.
Sammy.